everyone, to Ask Apron Work, where your wrestling questions are answered by a host of Apron Work Podcast. I am your host with your answers today, Michael Respace. This is a new little thing we're going to do, get some kind of quick content out there, not be as long as a normal episode. I kind of put it out there, I want to say it's now September of last year when me and Walton originally first bought Apron Work back, that we were going to do this. So this episode would be me. A lot of them would be me. We'll have Carlos do some. We'll keep putting questions out there for people to ask us. But for right now, I'm going to answer the initial questions we got, which was September 25th. So September 25th of last year, obviously. So these questions, thankfully, only one of the three that were chosen really has to be adjusted because of things that have happened since then, and you'll kind of see why when I read it off here. So for the first question that we received, funny enough, is from Carlos Rodriguez on Facebook, who decided to ask this question before we made him one of the three hosts and now two hosts of Apron Work Podcast. His question was, with the current influx of talent to AEW and Adam Page's soon-to-be fatherhood, which has since happened, when do you think he will be again in the world title picture? Now, clearly, this question has already been answered about a month. It's September 25th. Not even a month, 2 weeks. Because in Philly, at the 2-year anniversary show on October 6th, he was the Joker entrant, the surprise Joker entrant, and won a title shot. So that's kind of where he got back into it. So funny enough, if Carlos had just waited, he wouldn't have been able to ask that question. So I'm not going to look at it from when he will be in the world title picture, but I will look at it as the influx of talent and how it's affected his title reign, because I feel like it has absolutely affected it. The biggest issue with his title reign is Tony Khan even said it when he won the title, that he knew who was going to be his first 4 champions from day one. They knew it was going to be Jericho, it was going to be moved to Moxley, it was going to be moved to Kenny Omega, and then on to Hangman. And that is great at the time. And if the roster was relatively similar from the beginning, then, okay, you get that arc and you push him to the top. And that's great and all, except for the fact that they brought in 3 pretty big names that should be in the title picture. And speaking, of course, of CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole. So those 3 guys coming in, and not only coming in, but coming in around the same time. And a lot of that was pandemic related for CM Punk. He would have been in AEW a lot longer, but they wanted a live crowd, which is understandable because having that live crowd reaction in Chicago on the second episode of Rampage was huge. Then Adam Cole and Danielson both debuted on the same night, which I believe only happened because they were worried that crowds were going to be lost again for a while because of COVID kind of rearing its ugly head again, and they were worried that places were going to shut down. So I felt like it needed to be rushed both in one night to get that crowd reaction, make it a huge thing, just in case. Again, understandable. The problem is this has hugely affected Adam Page's run. It just has. He's won the title since then, and a lot of people are waiting for their turn. A lot of people are fans of all 3 of these guys, or one of them specifically, and they want Adam Cole to win the title. I've said this numerous times. Danielson and Punk have to win the title before they're gone from the company. They need to have their names on the history of champions. So how long is Danielson there for? We don't know. I assume Punk will be there a lot longer, but how long will he be a credible champion? That also holds a little bit too. It's kind of like Jericho win the first one. He's a nice name to have as the first one. He brought in fans. but you knew he was going to win it and probably never win it back again. So with Punk, you want to kind of strike while the iron's hot with him the way you could have with Adam Page, because I feel like he would have won it a lot sooner had they known 2 years into the company that they will have Adam Cole, Danielson, and Punk. So clearly that kind of came as a surprise. And then you even have somebody like a Miro who showed up that a lot of people feel like shouldn't be in the TNT title picture. He should be in the heavyweight title picture. So now you have all these names, including a guy like MJF, who I'm a huge fan of. A lot of people are. And he'll be in the title picture as well as a champion eventually, unless there's any real truth to him going to WWE. And that might even play their cards of, oh, crap, maybe we need to give MJF the title. So there's all that, not to mention some of the other young guys that will eventually build their way up, but those are guys right there. You have a guy like Keith Lee that a lot of people are huge fans of, that you felt like WWE at one point had viewed as a future champion for them. So there's just names all over the board now, but there's 3 ones that just stand over Adam Page, and that is Cole, Danielson, and Punk. Not to mention, will Omega win it again? Will Moxley win it again? So it really has taken a lot of steam out of the win. And it was great long-term storytelling. It took a lot of steam out of the win. And I assumed, honestly, that he would have lost the title already. Purely because I didn't think they'd give him a long reign, because they had to get it on other guys first. But I also said I believe that he'll be the first 2-time champion. I think he'll get it back. I could be wrong. Omega could end up with it. But he definitely will be a 2-time, if not more than 2-time, world champion. Unfortunately, it took a lot of steam out of this. And honestly, him wanting to go see the birth of his child and all that, take time off, did take away a little bit, because he would have won it earlier, and it wouldn't have allowed him to be away and these other guys to kind of go in there and take the spotlight a little bit. So, yeah, I hope that answered the question you didn't ask, Carlos. But the answer would have been a hell of a lot shorter had I answered it the way that you originally asked it. So, moving on, we have a question from a past guest host who was actually on the same episode that Carlos was on when he guest hosted. That would be Alan Santos on Facebook, and I'm sure he did not expect his question to get picked. He decided to ask, and I'm going to answer this the way he asked it, not the way it was intended. He asked, how big is Barista's dick? So, I'm disappointed. I wish you would have asked it the right way. Spell check. Check your spelling before posting, because I could have talked about Batista for a while. But since you mentioned Barista, I will go there, and I will say, I'm not sure. But the next time I'm at Starbucks, I will ask. So there you go. Now, on to the last question here. And this one is going to be a doozy. I put a lot of time into this. This is from Mike Berry, friend of the show, at Mr. Coach Berry on Twitter. His question was, and he actually asked multiple questions, but I went with this one for this first episode. Using wrestlers from any era, create a classic Survivor Series matchup 4v4 with the order of elimination and who would win. This one was tough. I think I originally said I wasn't going to read questions before the episode, and if I didn't read some of these questions and tried to answer it, I'd be here for an hour. So, unfortunately, I was ready to record this about a week ago and decided to wait, purely because this was tough. How did I want to go about it? Did I want to go with the best of all time? Did I want to go with my favorite of all time? Did I want to go with what I thought would have been a good match? Then do I go faces against heels? Do I go tag team sprinkled in there? I didn't know which way to go. So the way I ended up actually finally getting to an answer here, which I could have come up with like 12 different answers, but the one I'm going to stick with, I went with what I thought would make an interesting match, And I tried to only use guys that I've seen wrestle. Only one of them really is before my era of watching, and I've seen enough of him to kind of know him. So there's that. I didn't want to go too old and too much on guys that I don't really know. But I also didn't want to go too much of just current guys, so I sprinkled a lot in. So as far as these teams go, I did go heel against face. I'll start with my heel team, and I felt like number one had to be Randy Orton. He is Mr. Survivor Series. I think he has like the most Soul Survivors or whatever. So he had to be on this team. Then I wanted to go a little interesting and go Andre the Giant. I feel like he's a guy on a heel team. It's perfect, especially to have the faces kind of have somebody to go after and somebody to kind of dominate the match. And he's not super athletic. He's limited in the ring. So he kind of, he has that monster heel feel. So you got them two. And then the next two guys I went with was purely because I feel like in a match it would be great seeing the interviews leading up to this match, the promos of these guys fighting over who was the leader of the team. And I will go Ric Flair and MJF because I feel like it would be gold, them two just fighting over who's actually the one running the team, and Andre the Giant's just sitting there and Randy Orton's just kind of ignoring it. And I could just imagine the four of them standing there and MJF and Ric Flair stealing the microphone from Mean Gene, and now this is my team and this is my team. Almost kind of like what we got with Jericho and MJF in AEW, just in a way better way. So that would be my heel team. The face team, I went a little bit more unorthodox. First, I went with my favorite wrestler of all time, Kurt Angle. I felt like he is going to be the base of this face team. He's the guy that you feel like could... And I'm back. Sorry about that. Had a bit of an issue. I can't even blame Carlos this time. So quickly, I'm going to continue on what I was saying, and Kurt Angle is going to be like that guy. He's going to be like the head of the face team, the biggest overall star. So now you got the next guy is another star, and another big star, Bryan Danielson. I feel like he'd be an interesting mix in a match with Orton, Flair, MJF. He could even get a lot out of Andre. It would be interesting. So now these are your kind of your workhorses here for the face team. So now I wanted to get like a high flyer. I was going back and forth. Do I want to get a tag team, or do I want to go with big spots in the match? So since I'm worrying about the match, I'm going to go with a high flyer here, but I'm going to go with Sabu. And there's one huge reason for this. So I'm going to go with Sabu. So now we have Sabu in the match. So he's the third member. So now we also, the last member I go, and these were the two unorthodox picks. I'm going to go with Cesaro. Call him whatever you want. I'm going to call him Cesaro just for the simple fact of it's easier to say. So Cesaro is now in the match. Again, for one big reason and one big reason only. So now we get into the match. There's a lot of back and forth. The heels are using Andre, as much as they can. You could imagine Ric Flair and MJF tagging out to him real quick. A lot of quick tags in and out. So Andre's kind of been out there for a while. Now you get to a point where you have Sabu out there trying to take Andre off his feet. It ain't working. He brings a chair in the ring, jumps off the chair, tries to take him down. Nothing. Can't do anything. So now Sabu's like, screw it. I'm going to ECW ways. Picks the chair up, throws it at him. Just starts beating him down with a chair. Only taking Andre down to a knee, which is only frustrating him more. Now, Sabu's eliminated. Right there. Disqualification. Right? But we're kind of taking Andre down a little bit. So now Andre's kind of over to the ropes, holding himself up on one knee. And as Cesaro's coming into the ring, you don't really notice it, but Ric Flair had actually tagged Andre on the back. Camera sees it, but Cesaro doesn't notice it. So now Cesaro has Andre down on one knee, knocks him down, Now, here's where we get Cesaro's point of being in this match. You get the big swing. I don't know if he could do it. We've seen him throw a big show out in the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. So it would be a nice visual to see Cesaro swing Andre the Giant. So now, as that's happening, Cesaro, is playing to the crowd after it. All this stuff. Little do you know, Ric Flair's right there. So Ric Flair standing there. Cesaro has no idea. Turns around, pokes him in the eye. Tags Orton in. Orton comes in. RKO. Cesaro's gone. So now we got 4-on-2, right? The heels had the advantage. Danielson was already the main underdog of this match. The faces were clearly outdone when you look at these teams. So now, Kurt Angle and Danielson against Randy Orton, Ric Flair, MJF. So now Orton's in there. We get some back and forth. So here, this match continues. It keeps going on. Eventually, we get Orton and Danielson kind of going back and forth. You got them two going back and forth. Danielson kind of gets Orton back into his own corner. And kind of in a similar fashion, Ric Flair tries to make blind tag. So does MJF. Right? So they both tag him. The ref is calling both for the tag, and they're both in the ring just fighting. And Orton's still fighting with Danielson in this moment. They're just fighting. So now Danielson has Orton down, and Danielson's just standing there. And I'm imagining Danielson staring at MJF, who's back in the corner, fighting with Flair, notices that Danielson does not have Orton in front of him anymore. So MJF just kind of points to him and is like, all right, go ahead. It's all you, and gets out of the ring. Ric Flair turns around, needed a face. 1, 2, 3. Danielson takes out Ric Flair. So now we're here 3-on-2. So MJF is proud of himself. Ric Flair is bitching up a storm. MJF comes in the ring to insult him, doesn't realize that makes him the next participant. So while that's happening, Kurt Angle is tagged into the match. He comes over, Angle slam, MJF's out. So now MJF is eliminated. Him and Ric Flair are fighting. They're on their way to the back. We're at 2-2. Kurt Angle, Danielson against Andre the Giant and Orton. So now Andre the Giant's out there. We have Kurt Angle and Danielson make a lot of quick tags trying to get him down. And we get to a point now where Danielson's trying to get him down. Before you know it, Andre the Giant turns the tables, gives him I don't even know, a splash, whatever his. I'm picturing chokeslam. I think he's had different finishers throughout. A lot of it was just a big splash. So I'm going chokeslam, big splash on Danielson. Danielson's eliminated. But now Andre's like winded. He's on the ground after pinning him. Can't even get up. So now we have Kurt Angle comes in. They had been working on him. So now Kurt Angle kind of has him near the ground. Comes out. Keep taking it to him. Ankle lock. And you're going through the whole Andre's trying to move. He just can't move. Eventually he taps out. So now you have that big display. Andre the Giant tapping out. Kurt Angle, him and Danielson had just been pounding away on Andre. Andre's been pounding away at them. He's so tired. Orton's barely been in this match. So Kurt Angle's up, psyched up that he just made Andre the Giant tap out. And once again, RKO out of nowhere. 1, 2, 3. Kurt Angle's done. And now, the guy who's known as the Sole Survivor, the guy who's done it so many times, is your Sole Survivor for the match, Randy Orton. That's how I would draw it up. There's so many other ways it could have went with it. For whatever reason, this was kind of the connection that I was making to it, and picturing out this match and the whole fighting between MJF and Ric Flair and Andre the Giant kind of being the workhorse, and Randy just kind of biding his time like Randy does. So yeah, so that's kind of where I see this Survivor Series from any era working out. For those of you who watch, listen to this, give us who you think. It's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, you can go quick and just start rattling names off. But if you really want to think about eliminations and winner and stuff, it's interesting. It definitely is something that took me some time. So I thank you. I thank you, Mike Berry, and I assume that this is not the last time we'll be getting questions from me for this. So, yeah, that was fun. I mean, this went a little bit longer. I apologize for a little pause there, but yeah. So I'm going to try to do this once every couple weeks, whatever, especially when we get more stuff out there, depending on how quick we get questions. Trust me, next time it will not take this long to get this out. I will not be answering questions from 8 months ago. So yeah. So on that note, we'll see you when we see you.